I wanted to be a dirt tracker. And I went to quite a few dirt trackers in Lindsay and Oshawa. And then I saw two guys get killed in front of me, right in two different races. And that was the end of my career before it even started. I said, this is crazy. I'm married and I got a young child, and that was it. Well, I remember years ago, my buddy called me up. He said, can you take me down to Kitchener to the hill climb? And I'd never heard about a hill climb. So anyway, we took off for the hill climb, and we're driving and it's flat. I didn't see one bump in the road, never mind a hill. I said, Dennis, where the hell's the hill climb? He said, never mind, just keep going. We go through Heidelberg, and you blink, you're through Heidelberg. We made a left-hand turn at this gravel road, and here's all these cars parked on the road. I said, now what? He said, we jumped the fence. So we jumped over the fence, and I hear off in the distance, wow, wow. I thought, ooh, that sounds kind of neat. We walk close, and here it's like an amphitheater, and it's the tail end of a gravel pit that was long done, and they were right down to the dirt, and here's this hill about 160 feet high, and I'll never forget the announcer says, and now we have Charlie Jacobs riding a Harley Davidson from Bangor, Pennsylvania. This guy fires up and blasts up the hill. I turned to my buddy. I said, I know what I've been put on this earth for. I'm going to be a hill climber. Well, an hour later, he stopped laughing, and the rest is history. I worked at King of Bathurst, and I kept going up to, it used to be on college, on my lunch hour, it used to be a Harley dealer there. This guy, Slim Thompson, I said, Slim, you used to hill climb with Kenny Hatton from Woodbridge. I said, do you know where I can get a hill climber? No, I don't, blah, 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 blah. And that went on for about 2-3 months. Finally, I come in this day, and he's leaning on his elbow on the counter, and you could see the wheels turn. He thought, here's that crazy little bugger coming in again. How am I going to get rid of him? So he says, you really want to go hill climbing? I said, yeah. He says, okay, here's my address. Be there tonight at 7:30. So I thought, whoa, something's up. So I was out there at 5 o'clock, went to the restaurant, drove past this place a couple times, make sure I wasn't going to miss it. I drive in at 7:30. He's got the garage door open. Here's a Harley hill climber sitting right there on the cement block. He said, come here next weekend, and I want to check you out on it. So he takes me up to this subdivision, a big pile of dirt at one end. And he said, well, just try it on the flat. So he showed me, he said, don't forget there's no brakes. Well, I wind this thing up, what I thought was wound up, and it was wide open. I'm heading right at that pile of dirt. So I hit the brakes, and there's no brakes. I hit that pile of dirt, went end over end, and I came down, crashed. And this guy had his 2 little kiddies there, and he was parked on the side of the road. And he come over, he says, if you're coming back here next weekend, I got some friends I'm going to bring with me. That was exciting. I said, you should have seen it from in between the handlebars. We went to the hill climb, and I got a rigid frame Harley. Get it off the trailer, and I kick it, and it goes like this. I thought, what the hell? I got no suspension back there. The frame was broke. Load her back on the trailer. The guy says, this farmer down here, you'll see he's got a red mailbox, whatever. He said, he'll weld it for you. Get in there, he welds it. I make the first ride, the one side breaks. So we had turnbuckles to hold the bike down. A piece of chain like that, I put it around the frame, and I put it around the transmission mount, and I kept turning the turnbuckle, and it pulled the frame together, put vice grips on it, like running this way with the frame, and then put black tape all over it so the referee wouldn't see it. Got her in, the way we went. Yeah, I got 3rd place. I'll never forget. I didn't win, but I got 3rd place, and I still had my vice grips. Didn't lose them on the way up. That was great. I I went hill climbing for 10 years and tried to get little improvements made, riding on alcohol. And finally, a friend of mine took my Harley back to Elkhart, Indiana, and he put it on 75% nitro, and now I had about a 72 horsepower Harley. I come out that year, like I knew I always had in me, I was getting so frustrated. One hill climb in 10 years I won. And I come out that season, I took 7 first places, and I won my first world championship on that Harley. And, but I knew that wasn't gonna last, because the BSAs and the Triumphs, they were all coming on strong. We're at Hornell. I got this Harley, and it's running on 50% nitro now. I get to the top of the hill, grab the button, nothing. It's running wide open, heading for the trees. I said, I'll see you later. I'm at a left-hand throttle. So away I go, off the back. As I go clear the back, my left foot comes up to go over the frame. What does it grab? The throttle. Pulls it wide open. This thing is now dragging me on the top of the hill. We're heading right into the trees. My left arm goes under the back wheel and it spits me out. I had no sleeve from here to there, gone. Chewed up a little bit. My buddy says, thank God you're all right. I said, listen, go over to Beezy's trailer and right on the front, you'll see a handlebar straightener. See whatever. He said, why don't you do it when you get home? I said, we got a ride left. He said, you guys are all nuts. You're all nuts, he says. He said, you're not going to ride that again. I said, why not? I'm perfectly capable. He said, you only got half a sweater.
How did I get started in hill climbing? Well, you know, obviously through my dad, who raced for many years before I actually swung a leg over the hill climb bike. But actually your career gets started far before that. And because you got to put a lot of time into riding whatever it is, whether it's dirt bikes or you know, street bikes or whatever, you got to know what you're doing before you ever get on one of these nitro burning hill climbers. So my experience growing up in this house right here started with a Honda 50, and you graduate up to, we had a Honda 100 SL and a Yamaha 125. Then we got the motocross bikes, and it's probably those days of riding back then, how we did it, and that kind of developed your skills to be able to race hill climbing.
Just to add to what Greg was saying, you know, we've been riding bikes. I started, I think, when I was 10 years old. I think Dad put me into some races, and it was kind of like trials type stuff that they had, and a little flat track. But we started there, and then, you know, through the KX 125s that we rode, and just out the back of this house, there's a 60-foot drop off where it goes straight down, and we must have ran that hill I don't know how many times. So a lot that went into it, but that only prepares you so far.
For people that aren't familiar with nitro and its effects, nitro will take an ordinary motor and turn it into an absolute monster. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's a 20-year-old motor, or it's like a whole different ball game.
When you're actually sitting on that bike for the first time and you're running nitro, you start it up on alcohol. Just putting the nitro in the bike, the whole engine just, you know, starts to pick up, and it's just a quarter turn of that throttle. It's just lighting up. When you dump that clutch, like Greg said, you've got to have your hands on those handlebars and be prepared for it to be launched.
Bike is a nitro-powered hill climber. It runs on 97% nitro, and I tell you, when you just sit down on a seat like this and that thing's running and idling at 6 to 1,000. You reach around and turn that throttle, and you got 16 grand and 200 horsepower on tap, and you dump that clutch, and man, it's just like sitting and straddling a rocket. You're on your way, and you better have your meat hooks wrapped around the handlebars, or you're going to be sitting on your butt in the pits.
And when you're going up the hill, everything's got to be automatic. There's none of this, oh, I think I need more traction, I better get back. It's too late. You got to you go into the machine you are one. There's none of this, oh, I'm a guy sitting on this iron. Well, you know what? Hill climbing is a violent sport. And you have to have that killer instinct when you leave the pit. You're there, they're all your buddies, but it's war. Yeah, and you got to have the look of the eagle. You see a thoroughbred horse who's on his game and getting ready. He's now in the starting gate. Just check out a shot in their eye and you'll see. That's the look you have. I remember Joe Hammer said to me, he was my idol back then. He's from Cumberland, Maryland. He was just a wild rider on Triumph, eh? And he said, you look over that wheel. When you hit that spot, you know you're lined up. If you don't hit that spot, you're off course. You better make adjustments real quick. When I rode at Hornell, what I do is I get a buddy of mine to put 2 styrofoam cups, one near the top and one where I wanted to line up. I never missed one, not one, and a 1. Not every time, but yeah. There's one hill that for maybe 18 years had never been anyone got over the top. The reason being, right up near the top was a ledge that stuck out about a foot. And as soon as your front wheel hit that, it was all the way down and it was really steep. Well, I was always into suspension. The reason being, I watched my 2 boys go across plowed fields out here on their Kawasaki 125s, and they're doing wheelies, and those wheels aren't even leaving the ground, and everybody from back when is all running rigid frames. They don't want the shocks on there because, boy, that's extra weight and blah, blah, blah. Because of that ledge, they couldn't get across it. I had put a Greaves front end on it. Well, everybody hated the looks of it. Boy, did it ever work. Instead of 3 inches of travel, now I got 7.5 inches of travel. Well, I was first rider to go. No ruts, no nothing. Away I go up the hill, and I come to the breaker, and I was running with floorboards. I had my feet hooked in the front. I had the handlebars almost in my stomach. I'm looking at the front wheel. The front wheel hits the ledge, didn't even know it was there. I got a little back wheel kick when it hit. Went over like that, and I landed right on the edge of the hill, standing up. If the bike had fired once, I'd have been down end over end. The bike stood up like that, the front wheel came down, and I came down. The crowd went insane. They were pushing the snow fence over just to touch me, to shake my hand. Way to go, Canada, you know. Years ago, I'd crashed really bad, eh? So I, on the way home with my buddy, I said, stop at Scarborough General. So I went in there and I said to the doctor, I said, I think I broke my ankle again. He looked at me and he said, well, we might have to put a cast on. Oh, I says, I can't get a cast on. He says, why not? I says, because I got to ride the Canadian National Championship. It's next weekend. You get out of here and quit wasting my time. Oh, geez, I thought he was going to chase me right out the front door. That was the end of that deal. So I had a foot clutch on the Harley. And every time I revved it and I had my foot down, I could feel that ankle going, just grinding away, you know. But anyway, hill climbing is a little wacky, but You get 15 points, and it goes all the way down to 1 point per hill climb. All you got to do is miss one, and you're done. You got to get as many points as you can, or you're out. At one time, they used to do it on one hill climb. That was for the championship at Muskegon or York, Pennsylvania. And you made so many points, you got in for the event. But now they have it said, look, you ride the whole year, never mind based on you might have a bit of trouble and you're leading. And so that's what we did. We changed it to that. And I think it's more fair. You ride the whole season. So boy, it was catch-up football for me, right down to the last event.
We're ready for John Williams to move into the starting blocks. Good rider, Bill.
Oh, John's got many years experience with this, and these STP Hondas really move. Look at him jumping, he's up in the air. Okay, he made it up.
Great ride that time. He had a first round time of 7.31 seconds, and I think he definitely bettered that there.
So that summer, Wade and I, we were on our BMW 750. We headed up north for a camping trip with my buddy. And he was a big guy, and his girlfriend was pretty big, and he was packed up. It was a 504. So we'd pull up to a light, and I thought, I'm going to blow the doors off him. No way. He was gone. You know what? The wheels started turning. I thought, man, imagine one of those on 100 proof nitro or something. So I thought, that's it. This is way out direction I'm going to go. I said to Marilyn, I said, you know, we've got to do something or quit. I said, the only way I could afford to go on hill climbs back then, I'd go around to the guys at work and I'd say, hey, there's a big party going on down the hill climb. We'd all chip in 20 bucks, way four of us go in my old 57 Buick, with a Harley sitting on the trailer on the back, bouncing along. Yeah, so I found an engine and I got a picture of it sitting out here in the driveway, and I thought, wait a minute, I've got this engine. What am I going to do? Who's going to make it go? What am I going to do? So I kept asking around the bike shops. I said, I got a 504. Who's the best guy to make it go? And Nick Kemp's name kept coming up. This is the guy you need for the job. Well, unbeknownst to me, he was working right around the corner at Kawasaki, and I had a printing shop with three of my buddies.
It was John came to me, and this is what he wanted to do, and I go, okay. So we'll work at it. I says, we'll see what we can do, but nobody else has got this. We're doing something nobody else has done. Good. Then at least we work out, it works out. If it doesn't, well, start again, see what else will work.
Nick took the engine. We put fuel injection on it. It was totally Yoshimura equipped. And I'll never forget, we had the frame sitting here in front of the television. He had the motor finished. It was in the winter time. I come home, I got it in my arms here, and I kick on the door. My wife comes down, lets us in. We got 2 bolts. We just set the motor in the frame, put the 2 bolts to hold it there. And that was about, I don't know, about 4 o'clock. We sat there till 6:30, 7 o'clock, time to go to work, just looking at it. It was all, the frame was all chromed, and this black and gold engine. And
In my thought is they never had to be super modified as factory road racers where you need every little bit of horsepower. These things made so much horsepower, all you had to do was get it to the top of the hill. And then we played with nitro in percentages a little bit, and we just finally just dumped it in straight. And you just end up finding out that you just keep pouring it in until it starts to stutter. And then you just back it off a tiny bit, and that's the most power you can make. And the response to a throttle, you turn the throttle and just go like that, and it goes from 10,000 to idle, 10,000 to idle, 10,000 to idle, like there's nothing in between. And that's the way they were, that the response to running on nitro was just incredible. And it's just one of those things where you just keep pouring the fuel to it and pouring the thing and just keep doing it until it either blows up or goes up the hill fast.
I had told all the guys the year before, that's it, guys, I'm packing it in, blah, blah, blah. I didn't say a word to anybody, and I had an old car. The next year, I got some help from STP. Come out with a brand new van, all painted in Richard Petty colors with STP down the side. And I pulled into the hill climb at Victor, New York, and I see the guys like this, all the heads turning. So I thought, I'll make you guys work for it. I went way down the end, eh? So I get down there and all the guys are running. Who the hell's this coming in, eh? Anyways, I opened the back doors. Well, the comments. Williams, you told us you were quitting, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I thought I'd try a new venture. So here we are. Well, you know that 500, it's only got little pork chops for flywheels. When you get in trouble, you don't have big, heavy flywheels and bring the motor back. I said, yeah. And then they said, what do you got shocks on there for? That's a lot of extra weight. I said, yeah. Within a year, the next season, everybody come up with a swing arm suspension. We come out the first year, we took 9th. And then the next year, we won 3 world championships in a row. Man, I was on my game. But the only reason that I was is because Nick was the genius behind all our hill climbing. My 2 sons, he kept their Hondas going, and he kept my Honda going. Yeah, I'll tell you how good he put the motor together. There's usually 12 or 13 hill climbs. Well, there was 25 hill climbs in 2 full seasons. We never finished worse than 2nd place. That's never happened in the history of the American Motorcycle Association.
And we never tore them apart until we broke something. Basically, they never failed. We use a lot of stock parts, and until the stock part broke, we didn't know till it broke, how long it would last. And it was the other thing was to learn when we first started running was to get into the right gear. And then we found we always used 2nd gear, so I just tore all the other gears out of it. All they had was 2 gears in it, lined up, nothing else. Whatever you didn't need, get rid of it. The motor, it didn't make any difference because we only ran 1 speed. And all of a sudden now they're coming up too high, too fast. Okay, we're gonna have to lengthen the bike out. So make new swing arms, make them longer. Years go by, we'll make them longer. It's still getting longer and longer every time because you get more horsepower, you're figuring out all the problems, and now they're starting to hook up and they're starting to work. And I guess they must have worked because they've done quite well.
When I first hill climbed on that Harley, I was running a 56-inch wheelbase. When we ended up with the Hondas, we were running 85. And everybody was experimenting now with their swing arm suspension. I remember we were in 2nd place and I had put a ride through. Now I'm in 1st place at the last hill climb, the wrap up for the World Championship. And I'm walking over and I see this guy, Johnny Hamilton's nephew, and he's a good rider. He only weighs about 10 pounds. And they had his Triumph laying on its side. They were adjusting the chain. And they'd never experienced it before. They're adjusting like it's a rigid frame. They didn't allow any slack in the chain. They had no chain guide, nothing. And I almost said that, I thought, Williams, for once in your life, shut your mouth. So I did. They call it the Devil's Staircase because there's 5 big jumps in it. Well, he went over the 2nd jump and he was fine. When he landed, that chain went in 20 pieces. And I thought, we're going home with a world championship. So we did. It was a great time. I was more alive in my life when I was sitting in the pits. And these bikes that Nick put together, the 500 put out 240 on the dyno, and the 800s put out 300 horsepower. I'll never forget, Nick says, I know a guy that's got a dyno, he wants to check the 500 out. So we go over there, take it over there, just on alcohol. He's all set to go. I said, are you sure you're set up for this? It puts out quite a bit of horsepower. Whoa, he says, I have the super bike gas jobs and blah, blah, blah. He got up, fired up, gets on the rollers and he goes like this. He just touched the throttle, shut it off. I said, what's up? He said, I got to burn my machine on it. I got to put a longer bar on it, put more torque on it. He said, are you sure this thing's right? I said, well, the dyno tells you. He didn't even get it up to power.
The RPM and stuff is just too hard on the dynos. The dynos can't take it. There's no way of actually putting them on a dyno. They just estimate out the horsepower they got, and they just know they go fast. And if you're winning all the time, yeah, you got the power you want. If you haven't, then you start losing and you're not doing well, but you figure you did a perfect ride, then we have to find a way to make it faster. Just a thing I like to do, and I do it my whole life till whatever. I guess they started digging the hole to put me in. Will be time to, well, he's finished.
When we first built the 504, we were running Hornell, come out of the pit, thing is hauling the mail. Nick had it just flying. And I got to the top, and there's electronic eye there, and there was this cooler back quite a ways, a styrofoam cooler, I'd say 10, 15 feet kind of off the way a bit. And two guys were up there to make sure everything stayed all lined up. And geez, I'm to the left a bit, and I shut it off. And as I shut it off, of course, my body went forward a bit. My knee come down, opened the injectors wide open. That thing took off, jumped over a snow fence, and I hit a tree a good 20 feet in the air. The motor frame smashed like that, and I come back down. All I remember is styrofoam and bottles and ice flying through the air, cans of beer or whatever. And I said, sorry guys about the cooler. You okay? You okay? Yes, I'm all right. So we're going down the back path, and one guy says, I don't believe this. How you could crash like that and get up and walk away. And I said, well, you know this hill climbing. I said, we just do that to keep in shape for bear wrestling in Canada. I make enough money bear wrestling to pay my way to go to hill climb. You know that story went in, I got it upstairs, it's in the Harley Davidson Enthusiast. People come up to me at the hill climbs after that, and the announcer would say, and this next rider up, if you look in your Harley Davidson Enthusiast, you'll find out he wrestles bears. Well, people want to meet you know, they come up.
Don't worry about it. You remember that? Why, about bear wrestling? How you doing? All right, good luck today.
So this guy brought his two kiddies up, and a group of us were talking, the riders. I had won the hill climb, and kid's looking at me, and he says, do you really wrestle bears? I said, you bet. So I told him, and I told the guy that was doing the interview, I said, we take tranquilizers and we give the bear hop-up pills so we don't thump them too bad when we're fighting them. And they're writing all this down.
Put on about 20,000 miles last year, and it cost me $16,000 to bring back the championship. And with a little bit of help from sponsors, I just got the package together, and that was all. We just maybe broke even last year for our very first time in 20 years of hill climbing.
We didn't make much money back then. We did it for the love of the sport, and we would, like I won the World Championship, and I got $1,600. Now they're making 10 grand at some of the hill climbs. And so anyways, I felt bad. Here I am, I just won the hill climb, and I got enough gas money to get home. And they're buying I couldn't even buy them a burger. I felt bad, and I felt embarrassed. That, you know, it was a lot of different emotions went through you. It's, yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was a life that our whole family was involved in. That I didn't want the boys doing it because I knew it was hard on your wallet and it was hard on your body. And both of those boys have been hurt bad. Greg's had his lung punctured and broken this and broken that. And Wade, he's been hurt. And like I'm welded from my toes right to my nose. And I mean, well, you put an x-ray machine on me, I got all white welding parts all over me. Like I've had Both thumbs broke. These fingers broke. My breastbone is permanently split open from going at Syracuse, going up the hill and coming off the back of the bike. It wouldn't stop. And I was going so fast that actually I skipped like a stone going across the water. I thought somebody had grabbed my ribs and ripped them right out the back of my shirt. But I've had this ankle of Pott's fracture stuck right out like this. Yeah, this leg, I got bones in that foot broken. That ankle's been broken. This one broke 3 times. I broke it there and I broke it there.
And that's about it, and that's about enough for me. So every year I try to put a little more padding on and say, hey, maybe I'll protect that just a little more this year. And I think it's the way to go anyways.
Excited about getting this project done. It's really got us all fired up.
Yeah.
That's what
It's out late, but it's not picking back. It's not early.
No, because if it was, you...
Exactly. Why don't, do you want me to try and advance it a bit?
Okay.
And we'll see. Try it there and see if that makes a difference.
They come in a box.
Educated.
No.
No, they were Champion Spark Plug.
Champion Spark Plug.
Can't remember the name.
Greg wanted to start hill climbing, and I didn't want him or Wade going through what I had to go through. 1 hill climb in 10 years. I said, listen, you buy me a frame. It was about $2,500 or something, and you ride the 504.
Things didn't go as planned. We, right before the beginning of the season, I believe we blew the bike up. I couldn't see myself, you know, here's a world champion hill climber and him stepping aside for me to climb on the 500 bike. So in the end, we decided that, you know, he was gonna go 1 more year in the 500 class. We'll get the bike back together. So in the meantime, over the course of that year, my brother had also decided he wanted to go racing. And he bought a used bike, a Honda 4-cylinder, from a guy in the States that raced. Because I didn't have a bike, Wade was gracious enough to offer me, you know, when it was available to race the bike. It was almost like it was a testing ground. It was like, I was kind of working some of the bikes out. It's like every time I rode his bike, something broke. And it wasn't until Nick got his hands on it that he kind of got everything sorted out on it. And it's a process.
In the 540cc class, 2 riders came into the final hill climb round at Oregonia with a chance at the national title. Defending 540cc champ Greg Williams from Canada is always tough at Oregonia and takes pride in his #1 place.
So if I can just kind of rewind a little bit, Dad raced over the course of that year on the 500. As I watched him ride, you could see that it wasn't his best year. I think he finished 4th overall that year. And I could see that the 500 was still very competitive, but it wasn't the top dog bike anymore. And that was a little concerning for me, because I remember thinking, I don't want to come into a sport where I'm just competing, or where I can just finish, you know, 3rd or 4th or 5th or whatever it may be. I want to be on something that is capable of winning. I remember having this Hot Rod magazine, and I was reading this article about nitrous oxide. The more I read about it, the more I thought, yeah, this is interesting. This is a way that we can kind of up the game. So we put nitrous oxide, and I want to clear this up for everybody that isn't into deeply into motorcycles and high performance. Nitrous oxide is a gas, like air. Nitromethane is the fuel we run. So we're combining 100% nitromethane, the fuel that the bikes run on, On top of that, we're injecting nitrous oxide. So I approached Nick about that, and Nick doesn't say no to a challenge. You know, if it's motors, if it's you know, I got to make something, build something. It's just like, okay, like his mind gets going, and it's like, let's do this. So
basically, when we were told, you don't use it on nitro. It's not designed for nitro. It's made for alcohol guys and gasoline guys, but not for nitro. That means that we can do it. When somebody says no, that means yes. And that's the route we went.
We went down the first couple of races. This is a whole year after. So we go down the first couple of races, and we didn't use it. We were just kind of, you know, it was me kind of getting used to racing. So we get down to Hornell, New York, third race of the season. We decide, you know, this is a good race for me to try this nitrous oxide out that we put on. So I remember, I don't know who was there. It was either Nick or Dad. And I just remember we're in the pits and the bike's running. And, you know, he's reaching underneath and he's turning that bottle open. And this is it. This is the time that we're going to try this stuff for the first time. This was all new for us too. So it was kind of an experiment. So I remember bike sounded really good. Pull the clutch in, they put it in gear. I grab a handful and just dump the clutch. And this bike lights up like I've never, ever ridden a bike before. I mean, it was just like, this bike is going up the hill and you better be along for the ride, because if you don't have it together, it's gonna spit you off on the first breaker. And it was just like, all the way up. And I was probably about halfway up, and the bike started missing the rest of the way up the hill. And I'm like, what the heck is wrong? But it's still flying, absolutely flying. Get to the top of the hill, get it shut off. And not only did we set the fastest time of the day in our class, we set the fastest time except for one bike in the 750 class. That's how fast we were going. So that set off a whole set of phone calls come Monday morning. The big guys in the sport at the time, the risers, the Goertzers, the Bowlbys, they were all on the phone going, what are we going to do about this? Here's this guy from Canada coming down, and he's got some new technology, and he whooped it. He whooped one on us. Like, it was unbelievable. And, you know, at that point, I'm still a rookie, right? So a lot of conversations were being had about what we're going to do about this. We got away with that for, I think it was 3 years.
I just want to add one little note to that. Greg said it was missing from halfway to 3/4 of the way up. Well, when they tore the bike down, there was a big hole in one of the pistons. So he actually won on three pistons.
Yeah,
so
we're running a 4-cylinder, and there was a hole in one piston. So then at one of the meetings at the end of the, you know, every year there's an annual meeting, they decided that they were going to ban it because we were just winning too many races. So we were instrumental in actually getting a rule book change, you know, disallowing nitrous oxide. So that's, you know, a little feather in your cap when you're going so fast that they have to change the rule book because of you.
I remember him being at Freemansburg, leaving the breaker 10 feet before the top of the breaker and landing another 90 feet up the hill. And you can see the expression on all these senior riders that have been around for years, just going, holy mackerel. Like, it was just unbelievable how fast that little 500 was going.
Some of your best rides, you feel like you're almost like you're going slow in a slow motion, because everything just works so perfectly, and you go, okay, yeah, that felt good, but you don't really realize just how good it was.
Dad always said they're the rides you can't remember.
Yeah,
there was no bounce of the wheel, or, you know, they were just
the rides that, you know, feel like it's, you know, ripping, and you're struggling. It's like, you know, you felt like you really worked at and got it through, but your times are off.
Yeah.
Well, we're ready for Greg Williams out of Markham, Ontario in his Honda. And he's set at the starting line, Bill.
This is another one of the STP Hondas. A lot of horsepower, good rider. Watch him attack this hill. He'll keep that bike straight. He'll set way back on it, and he goes fast.
Boy, a very good run for number 28, Greg Williams, right to the top of the hill. Very direct, very clean. So while Robert Kesseldine gets ready for his first round run, let's move now to the Coors Light leaderboard. Greg Williams up on top at a 6.77, followed closely by
Nitromethane fuel and using only a high gear transmission, the Hill Climb machine is a rare breed among the motorcycle racing family.
For me, I started in 1983. I thought it would be kind of neat to join my brother and my father. So I went to the first hill climb. Short little hill, it's in Elkhart, Indiana. Comes out, it's maybe 50 feet, 50 to 60 feet, almost straight up. And then the hill breaks away, and it breaks out for probably 40, 50 feet, and then comes back up into a bit of a breaker, and then it flattens out and goes. Well, everybody has always rolled through that breaker. And I turned to my dad that day, and very first time I'd ever ridden the bike on a hill, I said to him, I said, you know, Dad, I think I might be able to jump that breaker. Of course, I thought maybe he'd talk me out of it, but no, he said, wait, if you think you can do it, go for it. So sure enough, I found a spot on that breaker that was like the longest and the highest, and didn't know what the gearing was, but let that bike launch, jumped off the breaker, and the only thing that saved me is we got a ton of rain the night before, so when the wheel landed on the far side, it actually went down into the hill and caused that wheel to drive the motorcycle forward, and before the front wheel even hit the ground, I grabbed the throttle and I'm going through the top of the hill, and I had first place at that point, and I think we were under 3 seconds for that ride. I didn't win the hill climb, but I got beat by a wily veteran, but only one other guy beat me that day. I ended up with second place, and I think I walked away with $116 second place prize. But as Dad mentioned earlier, it was not a sport where you're going to make a ton of money. It was more for the love of it and the enjoyment out of it. So
I often thought, Dad, why couldn't you get us into a sport that pays?
Yeah.
I try not to think about it. It's not something that enters into my mind, but everybody seems to get hurt sooner or later, so when my time comes, I guess it's time.
I didn't struggle for those 10 years like my dad did, and go through some of that pain that he experienced, only winning one race in 10 years, and seeing him come home in situations where his pants are completely wide open, and he's so swollen because he was on a bike that wouldn't shut off and had to get off when it's going full bore, or have a set of chains. Back then you're running these short frames and you got that rear wheel right underneath your butt. Sometimes the seat was a rubber tire with tape on it, and you have a set of chains break and come off, they come right through, and they put a set of tracks up and down your back. So he went through a lot of that trial and tribulations, and when we started, after they were running the Honda and had so much success with that, they were putting on padding to kind of protect you. Like it was full hockey type padding with elbow guards and the whole bit, and even the knee pads, and so they'd come a long way. So if you'd asked me maybe 10 or 15 years before, well, would you like to go hill climb? Well, no, it's kind of dangerous. But after that, it wasn't about getting hurt, because we felt that the protecting that you'd already brought into the sport, made it a little bit safer.
The thing I'm worried about is blowing my bike up. But as far as personal injury, that doesn't enter your mind. If it did, you wouldn't be a competitive racer.
it's hard to describe it. It's so violent, and sometimes it was scary, you know?
Yeah.
Like there were times I remember going to a race and I just didn't feel like I had it that day, you know, for whatever reason. You know, it's serious what you're doing, and if you make a mistake, you could be in for a lot of hurt. And there's certain hills that, you know, you had to do a real gut check and swallow, and it's like, okay, let's, we're here to race and we're here to win. And, you know, whether I feel like racing or not, we're gonna try and win this.
They get on them bikes and everything is just get to the top of the hill as fast as they can. They just can't think of anything else. Everything else, they don't matter how much you hurt, you're still going. You're just all adrenaline climbs and you just go.
1986 was a kind of an interesting year, and it started before we even got to the National. For years and years and years, we've always had the top 15 riders ride at the National, but for some reason there was a decision made to shorten it down to top 12 riders and still invite the 3 alternate riders. It was kind of weird, didn't really understand it, and why would you invite 3 alternates to ride there? Anyways, Dad got invited as an alternate, and so we were a little bit upset about it. I brought it up at the meeting before we even raced to try and understand, you know, why they made this decision. So we're already a little bit fired up. Of course, you heard Greg talk about the nitrous oxide that he was running, and I'm not sure what position he was riding in his class, but
first ride of the day.
First ride of the day?
Yeah.
Well, that made an impression, that first ride of the day.
And they didn't have the timer out there properly marked. Supposed to be all this white line right there as you go through the straight, because you're flying up these hills. We're doing between 80 and 100 miles an hour. People can't, they say, oh, you mean kilometers? I said miles an hour.
And I had an absolute cooking ride going, and you don't want to get out of the throttle, you know. And I think as I was going up, the front end's coming up, and I knew I was getting close to the timing line. I didn't want to get out of the throttle. As the bike's coming up, you're starting to lose your vision of what's in front of you because of the wheels looking in your face. So as I started to go, I got to be through the timing light by now. I cut the throttle and there I am coming off the top of the hill.
There's a snow fence, which he jumped right over the snow fence to stop you, and it goes 400 feet into Lake Michigan on the other side. Now, it's not a cliff. It goes like so, but there's all these bloody trees. Well, he hit one about 30 feet in the air.
Because the bike started to do one of these, and I thought, I'm going to get crushed up against a tree by the bike, so I bailed off. The bike went one way, I went into the tree, but I must have turned because on the backside of my helmet, it was broken there, and I went into the tree with my back.
Here he is sitting with his back against the tree, and he's going, like that. I said, Greg, just relax, just take it easy, just take it easy. And I helped carry him down in the stretcher, and they had oxygen going in the ambulance. Away we went.
So the hill climbing was held up for 45 minutes. And I remember when they got Greg down to the bottom of the hill, he could hardly breathe. And, you know, we just kind of said something short, and Dad ended up hopping in the ambulance and went to the hospital. At the end of the day, I won my class, the 750 class that day, and Greg got second place. So it was just one of those days. They didn't have the trophy ready after the race, so I sent the trophy to the hospital. So I guess a lot of the nurses would be coming in and asking Greg about his trophy there, that and he's, you know, kind of recovering from his injuries.
I punctured a lung. They had to put 2 chest tubes in me. Broke my scapula, broke 5 ribs, broke my pelvis. So that was 2 weeks in a Michigan hospital before a fellow rider, Billy Ure, who lived not too far from the hill, on his own time came, picked me up at the hospital, brought me to the border where Dad had come down and met us at the border and brought me the rest of the way home.
The national finish is always usually early August weekend, like 2nd or 3rd. And we got 6 weeks between that point and the next hill climb. 3 hill climbs left to go in the season. Greg was tied in the points season with the rider that had actually won that national. And I guess he probably thought, well, Greg's not coming back to ride the rest of the year. He's pretty banged up. So we show up at Freemansburg, and I can remember Rod Riddle's face when Greg's there in the van. He comes up to the window, he goes, "You're not riding, are you?" Because he didn't really think that, you know, he'd be in any shape. And he was hurting. There's no question about it. He wasn't healed. But he wasn't going to walk away from, you know, another championship that easily. The thing for me that's so important about this story is, you know, he comes back. You get two rides at a normal hill climb, 3 at a national typically. His first ride, his best ride all day long, the only person they didn't get a time on that day was him. So he had to end up riding 3 times, and he's the one that's really hurt, shouldn't be riding at all.
You know, when you first get out, you're thinking, yeah, I'll come back. And, you know, you're sitting right there in an opportunity to win a championship, and for them to miss the time, when I'm not 100%, not anywhere close to it, and that's just like, oh, you know, you're going, what do I need to do here to win? So you do a makeup ride. So I did my makeup ride and I crashed the bike. I've got 1 ride left now, and I'm, you know, the hill is getting a little crisscrossed, and you just had to be careful about what you were doing. You can so easily get out of shape on one of these bikes. I just remember coming off a breaker, and I didn't feel real good about how I was landing. And this is a long hill, and I got to get up the rest of it. And I just played it really cool. I said, I just got to get a ride through. I don't even care if I win. I just got to get a ride through. So I did. I ended up 4th, and that put me in a good position for the last 2 races. But the way it played out, I had to win the last 2 races to win the championship. And we did. We did. That was my 2nd championship, and yeah, that meant a lot to me. You were mentioning earlier that, you know, to come back like that when the odds were kind of stacked against you, and
yeah, it was special for the entire team because we all were involved with it. We all knew what it took, and for him to you know, climb back on that bike and miss the time, you know, the only one missed the time during the day. It just that's the stuff they make movies about, you know, that kind of stuff. So I mean, the whole team just felt, you know, so proud of that.
It took me probably the first 2 full seasons of racing to really understand what it was going to take to win a championship, because I think it was my 2nd year. I won more races in my class than anybody else, and I finished 2nd. And I had to think about that for a while. I was like, okay, I won more races than anybody, and I still finished 2nd. What am I doing wrong? And I had to kind of just pull back a little bit. Like it was a case of win where you could win, and do as good as you could at the other hills where maybe some of the other bikes had an advantage. And it wasn't always just like, you know, full out, go crazy. I mean, yeah, when you left, it was always the throttle was pegged wide open, but it was a little bit more reserved on, it's more important to get maximum points here than it is to crash and try and, you know, win a race and crash and not get those points. So once I kind of figured that out, 3 championships in a row, and then I got a little lackadaisical, got beat the next year. Then we came back and won again in '89.
We're getting close. We're almost dialed in.
Sure, she's gonna go now, man.
I was the beneficiary getting back to when we first started. Probably one of the reasons I did so well is that I climbed on a bike that had already proven itself, and that was through the ingenuity of Nick and through my father. And I give my dad full credit for, he's very good at understanding things that need to be changed and how to change what he wants it to become what he wants it to be, and ironing those little details out so everything works perfectly. That original 500 4-cylinder Honda that Dad and Nick built, that was the best handling bike, bar none, that I've ever raced. There's not another bike like it that I've ever ridden that for hill climbing. It was just an easy bike to ride. You were very good as well at being in tune with your motor, because I can't remember really making jetting changes very much. The bike just kind of ran as it was. But you always seem to be able to just dial it in a little bit more. You'd say, I just think it's a little bit lean, and you'd richen it up just that little bit on a jetting change, and it would make all the difference.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like how Dad read, when I was working with my own bike, if you just started to think about turning that throttle and it wasn't leaping, you knew either your timing wasn't not far enough advanced, or your fuel was starting to fall off. Once you really started getting dialed in with your own bike, you recognize those things. And then Dad, I'm sure, could tell you stories about that. He knew when his bike was right and when it wasn't.
When the 750 Honda was right, it's a 4-cylinder bike, but it sounded like a twin. It would just be boom, 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 boom when you're sitting in the pits. No throttle, it's just idling. And you just crack that throttle just a little bit, and pow! It's like you've got 4 bombs going off inside of a motor, and it's hard to describe it. It's so violent.
Another time we're at Hornell, and Greg and I don't know, we got into a little bit of a scuffle, and before we went, and we weren't talking to each other anyways, and our photographer was there with us. He took off, he come out, and and the bike went over, screaming like crazy, the bike, and pushing it over. And I said, Greg, you're out of motor. He said, what do you mean I'm out of motor? I said, that motor is screaming, you're not going anywhere. I said, what are you pulling for Gary? He said, I'm pulling a 44. I said, put the 40 on. And he looked at me. I was wondering, I think, if it would pull it, eh? He put the 40 on, he blew the doors off everybody. So on the way home, we were talking a lot. Yeah, everything was cool, eh?
John G. Williams, number 11 from Markham, Ontario, Canada, riding an STP special. He is a national and a world champion, a fine rider, and a fine gentleman. Bill, what are his chances of taking over the lead here?
John's a very capable rider. He's got about 25 years experience, and he has so many titles to his name. He's been world champion, he's been national champion, he's been Canadian champion.
Very personal.
Very capable rider with a very fast Honda.
6.41 is the time he's shooting for. He's got to go for it. 6.72. That doesn't quite get him into first place. As a matter of fact, it's going to plunk him about 4.
It's a serious sport, and if you're going to do it and want to do it well, the countless hours that were spent loading the bike, unloading the bike, loading the bike back up, bringing it home, unloading it again, the countless hours that Nick put in. And we're not talking just like mechanic stuff. We're talking like Nick designing things. First of all, these bikes are specially made anyways. Like the frames, the motors are all custom, fuel injection, everything that has to go along to make nitro work. But you know, that's how Nick was. It was. And I need to ask him, what did you get out of this? Because, you know, we kind of got the accolades, and I know we try and, you know, bring him into that, and you know, without Nick, we wouldn't have had the success that we did.
Knowing that you had to win that race. If you didn't win that race, then you were second. And, you know, knowing that you had to make every possible adjustment you could make to win that race. And when you do, you go, oh, you made all the right choices. And it was just one of those things that was neat to do. For a rider, it's different because he's the one that's riding it. I'm just the one that's working on it. It's the mechanics, yeah, they get excited about it, but probably not near as much as the guy that's driving it. Oh, you can have all the horsepower in the world. If you don't have the driver, then it doesn't make any difference. And so you just give them what they need, and if they can do it, they're good at it.
Nick says to me, he said, John, you know that 6-cylinder BENELLI?
All the parts from a 500 Honda will bolt on to a 750 BENELLI 6-cylinder. The connecting rods are the same, the bearings are a little different, the length the same, the valves are the same, the rockers are the same, the gaskets, all the holes, everything's the same. It just was the same. So literally it was a 500 with 2 extra cylinders. It made things a lot easier to figure out because it used everything the same. And Hillborn fuel injectors, we just bought 2 spare ones and just put the other 4 on and put the other 2 out and just made all the parts, or I made all the parts to make it work. And
have you seen a picture of it up close? It's like a plumber's nightmare. There's hoses running all over the place, but then he had to have a coupling go from the outside fuel injectors to hook in like so, because they're out here now, all by themselves, to hook into the same apparatus. I'm telling you, the guy's a genius.
So the 4 in the center were fine, but the 2 outside were straight out, which was no problem. He couldn't ride the bike because they were in his legs. They were jammed up against his leg. So I had to tip him up out of the way so he could get his legs up beside the injector. So they had to come up this way so you can get your leg in there. The 4 in the middle were linked together, was not a big deal. But then it was the how do you turn them on an angle and make those ones, because they're now up on an angle. And I'm going like, on and trying all these universal joints and stuff like that. And I can't find anything because all universal joints turn and then deaccelerate and accelerate. I end up using braided line. You can't twist it. And they were just one of those things I just kept thinking all of a sudden, oh, that stuff you can't turn it. Like you can't twist it. You can bend it, but you can't turn it. I found the right size, and then I just put them in there and made them fit and joined them up, and that was how I ended up getting all of them to open at the exact same time. It was just one of those things that you learn how to do.
Parts were available, but he made the pistons for it. Handmade, they got to be within a gram of each other. A gram.
So we had to make them with rotary tables and turn them, and made all our own pistons and parts. And the Vertax mag, they made a 6-cylinder mag for us. And it bolted right on. Like we used it to run the ignition system.
So we took an ACS engineering, Nick knew them down there, had the motor just sitting in it, and they built this crazy exhaust system. It was 6 straight pipes coming back into 2 megaphones about that big. Everybody says, if you ever heard it once, you'll never forget it, ever. And we can't get somebody that got the sound back then because they didn't have the cameras that we have now, you know, like the GoPros and stuff like that. But I'd love to get the sound of it.
Everybody from everywhere would come to hear that thing because it was just so loud of a noise and neat sound that it make over any of the 4-cylinder ones, and just made a lot of noise, and it just screamed to no end.
Or my mother-in-law, she called it the devil machine. Yeah, she didn't like me riding it. Yeah, and she never heard it run. Yeah, that was quite a story. Well, actually, we were outside the pits, and we had moved into the staging area, and we were just warming we're going to warm it up, and I was overdoing something, and Nick, he was trying to get it started, and finally he just touched the Kickstarter. It wasn't even running, and blew 2 cylinders right off the motor. Part of the top was gone, and part of the motor hit the frame, put a little kink in it, and nobody got hurt. I swear to God, I looked around, I thought there's got to be somebody dead here.
Oh, the flames shot up, I don't know, 20 feet in the air. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, it was like the sun landed and exploded, and it went way up in the air. It was unbelievable.
And after that, you could have heard a pin drop. Everything came to a stop.
Yeah, really. I went over by the snow fence, and I'm leaning on the snow fence like this, and I thought, just shaking my head, because all the time and effort Nick put in it, and all the heartaches that we both put into it, and here it's now turned into a 4-cylinder, but it won't run as a 4-cylinder. Yeah. I got the pistons and the rods at home, and we put the best of everything in it.
Now you got to get set for the rough part of the hill. This is just the easy part. You got to get across this breaker as fast as you go, gain momentum here, and now you're shooting up here and you're heading for a launching pad. It's going to send you right off to the moon. This could be a lot of headaches. This thing would give a mountain goat shin splints, I'm sure. That thing is really a decision maker, I'm telling you. When you're looking at it, when you're sitting on that bike, I'm telling you, you got to make up your mind whether you're going to shut off or whether you're going to go for it. And to win, you got to go for it, come off there 70 mile an hour. And when I come off this breaker, I got to be a good 10 feet in the air, and I got to get to the ground real quick. If I shut off a little too early, I'm going to land right in here, and it's going to take 2 guys and 6 sticks of dynamite to get me out of there. Oh, gee, I can hardly believe it. Every time you walk this hill, I should say climb and crawl up it, seems to take you an hour and a half. I can hardly believe it. You do it on a motorcycle in about 6 seconds. Oh man, can you imagine the rush when you come flying over here? This is out of sight. Oh, I hope I'm up here later on this afternoon and not down there twisted up in a pile of metal. Man, I can hardly wait to get at it.
Now we move to John Williams, number 8, getting into the starting line, and out of Markham, Ontario on the Honda, and of course take a little bit of time to warm up that Honda. And while we do, we want to mention today's action being brought to you in part by Electro Services, 2144 Columbia Avenue in Lancaster, featuring fine leathers and accessories for the cycling enthusiast. We remind you to always dress for the ride, Electro Services.
Right, big horsepower. Honda's out again and moving, and he's really got that thing running high on top of the hill, and watch him go to that top. Good ride for John Williams.
It is amazing.
Uh-oh.
Boy, just a little bit of a tumble there for John Williams, and I guess, you know, anything can happen. Now, the ride is not over right after you meet the crest of the hill. There's still some things to contend with there. John Williams, a pretty good ride. It just amazes me the speed with which the 800 cc's make this climb.
Oh, you're looking at a motorcycle puts out about 300 horsepower, and look at it though in the dirt, and you saw how that motorcycle moves, and it's hard to stop in that little short distance to the crest of that hill from that time of night.
And I knew the last 5 years that I was riding, I was on some fast equipment, but I was getting past my time. I wasn't getting it shut off. at the top in time. And I thought, you're going to get hurt big time, bud. So, but you know, the odd time I'd get one through and win, and you come down the back path, and there's 10,000 people are screaming your name and everything, you know, like, how do you walk away from that? You stay at it a bit too long. So that's when I got hurt really bad. This leg was ripped right off my foot in my stomach. I dropped down 80 feet to the first plateau at York, Pennsylvania, 10 foot high of wild roses. Nobody could find me. They didn't know where I was. I was out cold. And as I came to, I tried to get up, and I thought, what's the matter? And I looked down, and here I'm looking at my boot upside down, laying on my stomach. And right then and there, I had 35 years of hill climbing, and I said, you know, if I don't quit this, I won't be riding on trips with my wife, and I won't be snowmobiling with her anymore. She's my most important lady. Yep. She's been behind me 100%. But the last time when I had this leg done, she helped me with all my other injuries. She's going to work, and I'm laying on that couch, like it was a hospital bed there. And that leg was up like a huge football. I thought, I'll never be able to get a pair of pants on. I'll have to wear a skirt. So I was going to shoot for a plaid one. I thought, well, I'll tell them I'm Scotch or something. So anyways, she said, I'll tell you right now, if you go back hill climbing, you're going to do it on your own because I'm not hanging around here. So I said, well, I've already made that decision. She said, well, good, stick to it. All that's holding this leg together is staples. That's all that's holding it together. And I think they did a good job because they said I'd have to go up the stairs like this, one at a time. Hell, I go boom, boom, boom. But it's, you know, healing starts up in the head. When I was in the hospital, everybody had me written off. And I thought, I'm getting out of here. And that's what I did. I'd have my supper in the wheelchair, and then I'd take the wheelchair out and I'd do arm work on the railing all the way around the nurse's station. And I'd get caught. They'd say, you do it again, you're staying in that room. No, I'm okay. So I get up there, as soon as I was out of sight, I change it around the way I go. I got caught quite often. You're gonna hit somebody. I said, well, I haven't hit anybody yet. You will.
Number 2, Wade G. Williams of Markham, Ontario, part of that Williams racing team. He's on an STP special. Bill, what can we expect out of Wade?
Wade's a young rider, and he's out of a professional racing family, and they're all very good. And Wade he could win first. He can come in second. He's got a strong machine, and he's a very capable young rider. Get his 2 to replace those. Wade come out straight, but he's not getting a whole lot of traction, but he's fast in the middle. Look how he goes through that top.
Boy, that was very noticeable, wasn't it? The way he seemed to be a little shaky at the start, but boy, when he hit the middle part of that course, he was on the fly. 7.68.
Yeah, it looked like, I don't know, he was being a little cautious getting to that first breaker. Once he hit that first breaker, he flew. I mean, it just...
he opened up the jets at that point.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's take a look at that on replay. He comes out fairly slow. Go ahead, take it, Bill.
Yeah, he comes out a little slower than Wade Williams usually comes out of there, but like he just wanted to make sure he got through that first breaker. But once he was through that, I mean, it was just turning all that power of that Honda on, and away he went. If he'd have started out to come out fast like he usually does, I'm afraid Earl Bowlby's time might have been knocked off.
Of all the time I've been with these guys, we've never fought or ever argued about anything. They just, let's do it, whatever. And you know, if I said, let's do this, okay, they did it. Never once did we ever argue, or they might have argued against themselves, and I don't know about that, but with me, no, it's always been okay. And that's probably why I didn't mind racing with them. It's because there was never any problem with them. You know, they never argued, never nothing. Okay, just do what it takes, and it doesn't work out, okay, that's fine. You know, it's not like, oh, it's your fault for not doing this. It's not your fault. Nobody ever blamed anybody for anything. It was always, you know, the way it is. That's racing. And like one thing I can say, of all the years I worked on that bike, I never sat on one of them and run it. Never once did I ever sit on it. I sat on it to hold it or whatever, but never sat on it when it was running. Not once. Ever tried it. Never even wanted to. Because it's not working.
We're in the pits of the Williams family out of Markham, Ontario, Canada. We have Wade.
Wade Williams.
And we have Greg.
Greg Williams.
Right. And you both ride the 800 Rockets, right?
Yeah, that's right. I just joined the class this year. I took a year off to build up the new bike, and this is our first year campaigning it.
And I've been running the 800 class for 9 years with my dad now, and right now we're sitting tied for first place with little Louis Grenzer out of Elkhart, Indiana, and Jeff Yoder sitting behind us and 2 points back, so it's anybody's ball game today. We're just going to go out there and run hard and hope the bike runs well and hope I can get it through the timing light at the top.
Well, this is a family affair, and there's one family member missing. Brother John, come on over here. This is the chairman of the board, John Williams. John, what do you think about your boys being in the heat of the battle here?
Well, ever since they both started hill climbing the first year out, they were finished in second place, so you never really get used to them being in there, but boy, it was really something. Wade was down 11 points, I guess, as he mentioned, 2 hill climbs ago, and he's right back in first place again, and we're all pretty excited here right today. We've checked and checked and checked and made sure everything's right, so we're just going to get out there and get at it.
You know, when I watch the hill climb, if it's either of my 2 boys or myself, I'm sitting at the back of the couch, and then I'm forward on it like this, like I got the handlebars. And I used to talk to my bike going up the hill. I said, "Come on, baby, we got one going. Give her, give her." And she's rah, just, oh, wow. The thing is, you get watching stuff on YouTube. I saw myself about 3 weeks ago going up the hill at Muskegon. I set the hill record there. I'd never seen it before on film, and I'm sitting on the edge of the couch like I'm on the bike. And I heard they were filming from 88. The guy was halfway up the hill, and I hear the Harleys start. I hear the Triumphs and the BSAs, and all of a sudden, hoo-ah, you hear the hill climbers start. It was an 804 I was riding. Wound that thing up, front wheel come off the ground like that, and that's where it stayed for 400 feet. And I went up the hill past that guy with a camera, and I thought, geez, if I'd known I was going that fast, I might have quit right then there. You get to the top, and the guy says, "What are you doing here? You just dropped the clutch." I said, "Man, us Canadians get in a hurry when we're doing this stuff." So, man, I can't believe it, can't believe it. So that was it, one ride we had to yeah. bike's fire in the fence. Nobody's buying a hot dog.
No mosquitoes.
It clears the mosquitoes, doesn't it? That sounded good.
Imagine what it sounds like on Nitro.
It's like a whole different ballgame.
I'm not sure I want to go there. No, I think that seal might be going. I do have another seal working, but I think we've demonstrated what we want to do.
The other thing is that our the one valve is just the shut-off valve.
And leaking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It drip, 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 drip.
Okay.
And that's just on alcohol. 100% nitro, you have no idea until you hear it run on that.
Yeah, it's, like the difference is unbelievable. Like when you just think about touching the throttle, and it just leaks.
So the thing is too, it's on alcohol, but it's not even jetted for alcohol. So
yeah,
Right, it's jetted for nitro.
But boy, it smells good. It sounds good.
Yeah, it does, man.
I love how the ingenuity came together and everybody's got their head in there and we're all thinking. And
how many teeth did you advance?
I think we were 4 or 5. 4 or 5?
4 back 1.
4
Yeah.
back 3. We were at 3. We went back
3. Okay.
We turned the mag back so it would be advanced.
Well, we went too far advanced.
Oh.
Then we retarded it again.
Now that sounds good. Jesus Christ, put the hurt right on you.
Now this is Greg Williams. He's riding his brother's bike. He's riding Wade's bike. His broke, and he's trying to win the championship. And he's got the time, 7.355. That's going to take home first place money, but he's ended up second in the championship.
750 class today. Wade, or Greg, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Got you right, Greg. Got you right.
Thank you. This here, right here, is the result of a total team effort from my dad and my brother. I don't know if everybody knows all the problems we had today, but you know, Wade couldn't get his bike running, and Dad lent Wade his bike, and then as we got Wade's bike running, he lent me his bike. Right. This is a result of everybody working together today.
Great.
That's all, just a hold. Okay.
L.A. Nick, I don't know if he told you, he went to Dayton, Ohio. First hill climb he ever saw. He's driving in and he's going through the gate and he sees this big Canadian flag sitting up there. And he says, what's with the Canadian flag? He says, that team, the Williams team, came from Canada and put one super show on every year they came down. And that'll stay there till the full falls down. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff gets in your heart, eh? And I just want to say one thing, to be racing with my 2 sons. For the last 13 years I rode, you can have all the money in the world, you can't buy those times. You cannot buy those times. And I told them when they both started, I said, look, we're going down there, we're representing Canada, win, lose, or draw, we're going to be the best sportsmen they ever saw. And we were, and that's how they conducted themselves. I was really proud. And sometimes it gets pretty damn frustrating. You got a winning ride going, go through the clock. Oh, sorry guys, timer didn't work. Ooh. Grumble, grumble. But to yourself, off to one side. Yeah.
I put my money on Johnny Williams today to win the hill class.
What more can I say about Johnny Williams? He's an old timer and he's there. He's got it.
He's an excellent rider, John is, and his bike runs good. That means a lot.
It takes determination and a lot of effort, and he really puts it into the whole sport. Not only for himself, but for the sport itself.
John said he wears the full-face helmet so people can't see his face screaming going up the hill. What he's doing, we're all doing.
one thing I'd like to say that wasn't mentioned is that I'm proud of about you is that you brought a professionalism to hill climbing that before you did that, it wasn't there. And you elevated the sport for everybody else.
Thank you.
And I look at you as that point in hill climbing history initiated everything else getting better. The riders got better, the equipment got better, you know, the professionalism of everybody else in the sport started to get their stuff together, and you just elevated the sport.
And I know the three of us, I know Nick's had enough, if we went back and the guy upstairs said, okay, you got a chance to go back and experience it all over again, but you're going to get the same injuries. I said, my gear's already packed.